Hi, it's Ruben, and welcome to another story time. I'm standing here underneath the Mexican flag, and this is where I'll tell you another story. And I can hear you thinking, Ruben, in your last video you told us that you were going to, tell your stories from interesting locations. And before you dismiss this flag as uninteresting, let me tell you a little story about how it came to be. As you can see, in the middle, there is this beautiful, if I can get it, no, it doesn't want to. Wow, did you see that? Okay. There is this eagle in the middle of the flag holding a snake, or it's eating a snake on top of a cactus. And it's a pretty interesting story about how this came to be. Because actually, a few weeks ago, I was in Teotihuacan, which is this huge pyramid that should have been a world wonder, and would have been a world wonder if only the Mexican government hadn't decided that they wanted more tourists in Yucatan. And you can see it over here. Beautiful, huge, amazing, check it out. But the story of this pyramid is that the people who built it and the people who lived over there were actually never allowed to go to the top. Only once a year was one of the high priests allowed to walk all the way to the top, but he was under the influence of so much peyote and hallucinogenic mushrooms that he would go up there to basically talk to the gods, and he would see the weirdest things, the beautiful visions. Like, he would tell them that there were paradises hidden inside of the pyramid. And of course, the people believed him because they couldn't go up there to check. So one time, one of the priests went up. He walked all the way up to the top of this pyramid, and he had a vision. His people needed to walk away from Teotihuacan and to go to a different place, and to walk up until the point where they saw the image of the eagle eating a snake on top of a cactus. So they did, and they walked and they walked and walked, and the moment they saw this happening, that is where they founded the new city. And that new city is the city we're in right now, Mexico City. And of course, hallucinogenic visions are not necessarily the best basis to create an entire metropolis on. And this is why Mexico City, it's in one of the worst locations in the world. There is an enormous water shortage, and because it was built on top of an old lake bed, the city actually sinks about 10 centimeters every single year. There's even one church in this city that sinks so much every year that instead of trying to lift it up, they just make sure that the door is a little bit higher every single year. And that is the story of this flag. How'd you like it? Okay, time for another story. And this time the story takes place back in Nicaragua, in San Juan del Sur. San Juan del Sur is this lovely little beach town where you can surf and party, and that's mostly it. And there's plenty of both. And in this little village, in this little town, I stayed in a hostel that was right outside the center, and it was only like a 5-minute walk, but there was one obstacle. The obstacle of a little river that actually, went into the sea, as all rivers do. And we had to cross it every single time we went to the city center and back to our hostel. The first day, this wasn't a problem at all. It wasn't even 2 meters. You could just jump across and you were safe. However, we had some heavy rainfall after the first few days, and it wasn't too long before we actually had to wade through, and it looks a little bit more like this. The next day, luckily, they made sure that there was a ferry service that could take you across for a small fee, and this worked out pretty well. And yeah, it was nice. It was a nice way to get across. I mean, it's an experience in itself to just go on in the little boat. But of course, this boat isn't like a 24-hour service, and we like to party. So at some point we were going out and we were assessing our options on how to get back to the hostel. And there were 3 options. Either we had to walk around the river for about 45 minutes, which was way too long, and it was in the dark in the middle of nowhere, so not the greatest idea. The second one was to get a taxi, but of course you had to pay. And life as a backpacker, you try to live as cheap as possible, so paying, absolutely not an option. There was a third way, which was trying to see whether it was low tide and we could actually wade through the river and get back safely that way. At the time, I was going out, I was partying with a tiny little German girl, And the two of us were the only ones left, and well, we basically decided that we would go to the river and just assess the situation, try to wade through, and if it was too deep, well, you know, we'll think of other options. So we went over there, and she went in first. And she was very short, and after, the first few steps, I saw her almost submerging completely. She just managed to get her stuff above her head, and then she was like, you know what, we're wet anyways, let's just swim. And I was like, okay, sure, you know, let's swim. So we swam across the mouth of this newly formed river and managed to get across safely to the other side. The next day, we received two pieces of new information. First of all, it happened to be high tide at the moment that we were crossing, and the point where we crossed was more than 3.5 meters deep, so there was no way that we could have crossed it without getting ourselves completely wet. And the second piece of information is that the moment we approached the river from the side of the hostel, we actually saw this sign. So I'm just glad that I'm still here and I actually get to tell the story right now, because it could have ended very, very differently. Thank you for watching another story time. It's only my second one. Tell me if you liked them. Tell me if you don't like them. Tell me what kind of stories you need to hear. Tell me everything. Leave something in the comment, even if you don't feel like it. Just let's say hi or something. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, do the things.